We're live to YouTube. No, right?
Welcome, bienvenue, Anine. I'd like to thank our media and broadcast partners who are covering tonight's meeting. I'd like to begin, as we do, by acknowledging with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Madam Clerk.
I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 28th, 2023 be approved.
All in favor? Carries.
Under item 4, declaration of pecuniary interest, I have a number of items. I have Mayor Shoemaker on Yates Avenue PUC Transmission LP, as the proponent is a client of the law firm. Mayor Shoemaker on bylaw 2023-149 zoning of 207 Old Garden River Road, Daniel Fremlin Holdings, Inc., as the proponent is a client of the law firm. Councillor Hollingsworth on bylaw 2023-149 regarding zoning of 207 Old Garden River Road, Daniel Fremlin Holdings, Inc., as the proponent is a member of a family member. And Mayor Shoemaker on bylaw 2023-159 property sale surplus property portion of Yates Avenue, as the proponent is a client of the law firm.
Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. That brings us to delegations.
Accepted. Approval of the agenda. I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo Allen resolved that the agenda for September 18, 2023 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? Which brings us to delegations. We've got a number of folks here interested in the Harvest Algoma report that is on the agenda. So we are going to start with that report, which we will move up the agenda. Before we do, we've got John Nacarado and Chelsea Gaudette here from Algoma Steel, who I invite to the podium to provide us some information that they wish to share with the community. Mr. Nacarado, Ms. Gaudette.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, committee. Chelsea. We have been following the story about Harvest Algoma for some time. We recognize how strong they are as a community source for security, food security in our community. We're a founding member of the United Way. And as we've been talking a bit in the background, that Algoma Steel is prepared to support the financial support to the Harvest Algoma by giving them $120,000 over 3 years. We recognize that we're partners in our community. We have to help individuals. We have to provide the foundation for people to succeed. And it's our pleasure to be able to do this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Nacarado. And on behalf of myself and City Council and the entire community, I know that there's many supporters of Harvest Algoma here today. Algoma's success, as we've seen in recent years, translates to the benefit of our entire community. And as you continue to undertake projects to improve your long-term sustainability, we hope that that success translates into the community's success as it has today, and really appreciate the outreach that Algoma made on this file probably about a month ago now, and the commitment that you've landed with and announced today. Thank you. So with that, Council, we've got the Innovation Center and Social Services CEO and Harvest team here and the United Way here as well to discuss the Harvest Algoma report, the Community Development Fund request that is on the agenda. And so I will invite whoever's speaking from that contingency, David Thompson from the from RAIN, part of the Innovation Center, to take us through your presentation.
Hey, I trust you can see on your screen a presentation deck we put together. 3 minutes. I'll quickly go through this. Mayor and Council, thank you for this great opportunity. Consider this proposal to sustain Harvest Algoma's Food Resource Center through the St. Marie Innovation Center and the Rural Agri Innovation Network, or RAIN. For those watching, the Innovation Center is a separate not-for-profit organization and is one of 17 regional innovation centers in Ontario. Our organization is very excited to enhance the impact of this vital community program for many organizations across Algoma District. The $60,000 funding in annual funding support over 3 years will provide stability to the program as our organization develops programming and activities that'll reduce the burden to community partners over time. This new vision for Harvest Algoma will combine the strengths of RAIN as well as Harvest Algoma staff, volunteers, and resource networks. Our vision is that Harvest Algoma with the RAIN will be a catalyst for change, not just providing food, but being a pillar for community training and community building through food. We will seek holistic impact to have a positive social, economic, and environmental benefit through our efforts. And through partnerships, we'll be able to better serve the community to address rising food bank demand through Harvest Food Distribution Hub, where it will be possible to realize over 500,000 pounds of food to be rescued annually. This new vision will also aim to provide services to the agri-food sector in Algoma through a kitchen incubator program that will provide a place for entrepreneurs as well as food producers to do product development. Finally, I'd like to thank the organizations that are here today with us, showing their amazing support as they've done throughout the years. I'd also like to thank Mr. Nacarado and representatives from Algoma Steel for them stepping up in such a huge way for our community. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Council, there's also a report from Community Development Enterprise Services on the agenda, so you can ask the questions of the representatives here or of our staff. So we'll start with Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I have questions for our guest presenter. So we can ask staff as well, or do we wait until we dive into the vote?
No, you can ask staff or our presenter.
Okay, just clarify. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and everyone tonight for coming to show your support. There's many of us knowing that you have done and continue to do great work. On your presentation, you had a list of different pounds of food, and I believe there was Second Harvest. Can you elaborate on what that means? Second Harvest, from my understanding, is one of Canada's top or largest food redistributor in Canada. Can you explain your relationship with Second Harvest?
Sure. So with the United Ways, Harvest Algoma up to this time, Second Harvest was a partner with that. They are an organization, national, out of Toronto, and they are a big food rescuer from processors, large retailers within that general area. Second Harvest has agreements with community programs across Ontario where they will provide shipments of large trucks of food to the tune of about 45,000 pounds per truck from Second Harvest. So up to this time, there has been transportation costs involved with bringing those trucks to Sault Ste. Marie. And we've confirmed Second Harvest would be a future community partner through the Harvest program.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So in the last 5 years, Second Harvest has been a partner. They have been sending food up here. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
And they've been using their own trucks, but you have to pay for those trucks or something?
It's not their trucks. So largely, we've contracted transportation providers in previously, and the cost of those trucks can vary, whether we can get backhaul deliveries from Toronto or if we would have to send trucks down ourselves.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, they have been wonderful in providing additional food, plus people in our own community, I believe, have been donating, correct?
That's correct. There's a number of community partners in the community. Connect the Dots is one of them that has gleaned produce from farmers markets, as well as Rome's and Food Basics have been generous community supporters of Harvest.
Okay. I just have a few other questions. Can you elaborate on the past 5 years financial donations? Have you been receiving most of your donations from individuals, corporations? Can you just elaborate on that, please?
So that would have been through the United Way of Sault Ste. Marie. Within the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center, those donations weren't coming to us. We are projecting forward that contributions in terms of fundraising from corporate and as well as individuals will continue under this new model. But that would be a question that would be directed to United Way of Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay, so help me understand further. So up to this point, United Way has been helping by gathering donations on your behalf and then passing on an X percentage of the donation to you or your group. Is that right?
No. So
Okay.
United Way has led Harvest Algoma since its inception in 2018. It's only up until now where it would be part of another organization.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Up to this point, Harvest Algoma, you have a current active board.
Harvest Algoma does not have an active board. Within this proposal, it's that the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center would take the lead role. But in the short term, before the end of December, we would strive to set up an advisory committee so that we could have further direction. And to that advisory committee, we would provide audited financials as well as a performance report moving forward.
Okay. With regards to the board, as you know, boards play an important role, even advisory committee, and you should be looking for a certain skill set. Working with the Innovation Center, what skill set are you hoping to see on your advisory committee? Will you be reaching out to best practice companies such as Second Harvest and ask if perhaps one of their individuals would jump on the advisory committee to give you more mentoring, to give you some more advice, to give you some more ideas so that your next 5 years will be positive and successful? Would you be considering that?
Absolutely. I'd say with any board that would be structured or advisory committee, it's important to have a good combination of skills as well as community connections. And having a skills matrix would be something that we would be doing, but also for the chair role, we would want to seek an independent voice as well.
Okay. This may not be directed towards you, maybe for staff. I'll start with you. As you just mentioned, Second Harvest is an excellent model. It's best practices in Canada, along with Reserve Foods in Calgary. Are you looking at any other best practice models that you can benefit from, that you can mirror the same image so that you, Harvest Algoma, can be successful? Is there any particular model that you hope to adopt?
The model that we would like to adopt is that of a community food center. And so we have been in contact for many months with Roots Community Food out of Thunder Bay. They are one particular model of a community food center, and Community Food Centers of Canada is that oversight body.
Okay. And for the viewers at home, can you give me some background? How many years in Thunder Bay been in existence?
The Roots Community Food Harvest, I believe, have been around since about 2015. More recently, they've completed a build within the city of Thunder Bay with a lot of resources that are present within the Harvest Algoma facility. Their annual operating revenue is close to about 1.5 million.
Okay. And having said that, the other question I have is with regards to just looking at, I believe you've been funded by DSAB in the past. Is that right as well?
That would be generally the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center. Peter Bruins is with me today, our executive director. He could speak to the funding through the DSAB that the Innovation Center has received.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hollingworth, are you wondering if Harvest has been funded through the DSAB? Because that would probably not be a question Mr. Bruins can answer.
That's correct.
Yeah, I could confirm that the DSAP has Harvest Algoma in the past for shelter meals.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, again, maybe it's towards you or towards the other gentleman. Harvest Algoma has done a great job in helping food banks across our community. When you realized that you're struggling, did you reach out to the food banks for their thoughts, their advice and suggestions on how you can improve?
Up until hopefully next month, we have not been the operators of Harvest Algoma. We've been a party looking to take on the challenge. However, in the last 6 months, engaged in the Process Innovation Center, we've been talking to all the banks and community providers and expect to have far more in detail conversations once we get closer to closing this transaction.
Okay, that's good.
All a key part across the entire Algoma region.
Okay, that's good news because I know a number of us around this table volunteer with several different food banks. And since this has been announced in our news, many of the food banks have reached out to us with ideas on how you can strengthen Harvest Algoma. So I really hope that you take the time with the new model and ask these other food banks for their insights.
That's absolutely part of our strategy, is to create synergy. And if we create synergy, it drives down costs and reduces the public burden down the road. That's exactly our strategy.
Okay. And when do you expect you'll come back to council with a strategy so we can also provide some input?
I think first we need to close this transaction. Then I think there'll be an advisory committee struck before the end of the year. It will take a little bit of time for it to get its traction. So I would say 6 months to possibly a year to give a really good overview of where it's gotten to. There's a lot of development work that has to be done, relationships, arrangements, getting food in the door. Like we've already ordered our first trucks to try to get food in quickly.
Okay. So accountability. In conclusion, I just want to re-emphasize to look at best practices and look at the models across Canada. Rescue Food Calgary is one of the top. And as your colleague said, Second Harvest is also the top. They are top notch, and please reach out to them and please consider having one of them on your advisory committee as you move forward in your success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Dufour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, David and the team for your presentation and for your hard work on this business plan. You mentioned in your answer to Councillor Hollingsworth, community food centers across Ontario, and you specifically mentioned a food center in Thunder Bay. Can you share with us what you know about what level of government funding they get and from which level of government their funding comes from?
Yeah, I know with the Roots, they've had a large building project for the last year. So that might skew the government funding from the last period. But it's our understanding that much of their government funding that is provided is federal funding. That's coming through the Employment and Social Development Canada for their employment program, as they do programs with youth in community food. They do get a smaller percentage, I believe, of provincial funding through the CHPI. And I believe that's through Thunder Bay's Social Services Board for their newcomers program.
Okay, do you know if they receive municipal funding or municipal adjacent funding at all?
I believe like within their startup, they would have received more direct funding towards outcomes, but it has largely been provincial, but mainly federal.
Okay, so it sounds like there's potentially a scenario here where the municipality of Thunder Bay helped to provide funding in order to get a really important community initiative started. And then after some amount of time, federal and provincial partners stepped in, grants were made, asked for given, and that's what's provided a lot of the operational.
Yeah, as they develop their programs over time, they've also developed social enterprise as well. And fundraising has been another significant part of their streams.
And again, just to reiterate in your answer to Councillor Hollingsworth, that seems to be the kind of model that we're hoping to pursue here as well.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, just as a comment, I think that we are following what the best practices are from other areas, Thunder Bay being one. And I think we have a really exciting and excellent opportunity to get something started in our community that we know is incredibly important to our community. We are hopefully going to be putting our best foot forward in funding something to show leadership that it is important to our community. And hopefully our community advisory group that will be helping to report back can pick up on the issue of other core operational funding from other levels of government, and we can see this sustain itself into the future. So thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this request.
Thank you. For Councillor Bruni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To David, regarding screenshot 15, your financial aspect, Harvest Algoma. Maybe you can go through this. I can put it up. I guess my first question is, if you didn't receive the $60,000 city for 3-year commitment, would this be able to proceed without it?
I don't think so.
No, it was just a question. But if you want to go over this, the total funding confirmed as of September 13th. So 261,000 is confirmed government.
Oh, that would be both private as well as from community partners.
Okay, so then your Harvest Algoma expenses is 416. Then it says remaining funds to secure to cover expenses. Would this be enough?
To have the contribution from the city to move forward? Well, we do have remaining funding requests that we do have out with 4 different partners from the community. While we are very hopeful about those requests, we would likely be able to do it, but there is a significant expense around the meal distribution costs, getting those trucks to come to Sault Ste. Marie. So if it all doesn't happen, then the impact would be much, much less if those community organizations didn't put forward the funding. But we are pursuing other funding in parallel as well as we only have a few weeks. And
So right now, the 4 organizations, you haven't confirmed of the $20,000 each yet.
Presentations have been given to all organizations, and we are waiting.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Just for some additional context on that, Councillor Bruni, just so all of council's aware. The CEO of DSAB, the Innovation Center, myself, and the community partners who have committed are all making a push to the organizations that we think can contribute. And there's four that I think we are hopeful will contribute, but the outreach is probably more to like 7 or 8, so that if there is some combination of 4 that can get us to 80, or some combination of 8 that can get us to 80 grand from those agencies, we'll get there. I think what you heard David say is that we can do it. Without that, it would be a lesser program, but we're going to continue the push to make sure that we get as much of that 80 or over that 80 if we can, to make sure that the program is carried out the way it's intended to be. Were those all your questions, Councillor Bruni?
Yes, sir.
Councillor Vezo-Allen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to give you a break, David, to Lori from the United Way.
Welcome to council, Ms. Houston.
Lori, just to ease confusion and to provide clarity, I mean, a lot of us around this table understand how Harvest came to be and what it is, but if you could give us a short synopsis of the connection of United Way and Harvest Algoma, and the understanding that Harvest Algoma is a project of the United Way, but not its own entity. If you could give us a short history lesson and moving into where we are now, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
This might be a better for David hearing, but I will do my best. So 2017, United Way saw the need for food security, so they developed Harvest Algoma. In 2020, we purchased the building. So Harvest Algoma was first set up as a food resource center. So like we're collecting all the fruit from obviously Second Harvest and local donations, distributing out, doing the shelters for the DSAB. The last year set up different programs like Village, trying to do ready meals for CHA, and I believe Community Living Algoma also. Things like that. Like I know we've done our best food security as best as we can. It's been a challenge financially for us just over the last couple of years with financial shortfalls and campaign shortfalls. Basically just developed as a need. I know there was a call for proposals from the DSAB. That. Thank you, David. Sure.
Just you're just gonna have to talk into the mic there, otherwise nobody will hear you at home.
Harvest was sort of the poverty round that Mayor promised. We broke down crucial areas, and in the end, they took. We added food to it because hunger is the root of everyone's problem. And I want to thank Mike Nato because they stepped up to the plate with us. And basically, we went out and we leased Croatian Hall. That was 5 years ago. Every year for campaign, we've asked money for this center. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, what is that? We just don't have the money to advertise. So it's been running. We've had a lot of community partners donate money to us. I don't want to put the actual number up of what the federal system is, that's because it's a lot of people and a lot of partners support us pulling off their program grants. We're now in debt where we've built something that works really, really well. We have a world-class food system here. And the Innovation Center have kindly stepped up to say, we'll take it to the next level because we've run out of money. And I think it was made clear that we need to pay some of the other systems we do. We're going to do that. I mean, that was part of our next campaign as a check giving to basically the partners that have supported us by not asking for money immediately. You know, I was there when we bought the building and, you know, it has been an actual resource to think that it's that easy to sell something of this nature. We could have sold it and just walked away and paid our partners and be done with it. But we know the community needs this center. It works for all the outlying regions. And I thank the Innovation Center and I thank Mike Nato for getting us all together to say, we will take it to the next level. We've built a system. We used models from a lot of food banks, and we used a lot of food. When it comes to Second Harvest, great system. you have to park a truck there 24/7. Because if you don't grab that food, it's gone. I don't want to tell you the money we've spent.
So I don't mean to interrupt, David, but for some folks who may not understand what Second Harvest is. So Second Harvest basically comes from the GTA.
Yes,
And it's food that has been rescued either from grocery stores, restaurants, producers, and there's a fee, correct? How much is a fee of one truck?
It's not a fee.
It's not a fee. It's the trucking,
Food is free. We pay for the trucks.
trucking, yeah. Which is on average is about $3,000, depending. Okay, so my other question is, at any point in time, did United Way and the board discuss that it would be beneficial for Harvest Algoma to be its own nonprofit? Because then they would qualify for funding, because under the auspice of United Way, with you being a grant giving organization, it limited what you could and could not do because they weren't their own standalone entity. Would that be correct?
right before COVID. Yes, that is exactly correct.
Okay.
And then it closed down. So I mean, it was just a problem then. And with government money coming in for many other programs, it did help us. But now it's come out, we need to hand over. So it's a marathon race feeding people. We're handing the baton over. We think it's a great organization and a good offer and a good deal. And what we've built them, we know they can run with.
Okay. I'm gonna let you go. I've got two more questions with two other folks. I'm trying to share the love today. Of that $261,000 that's been confirmed, whomever can answer, how many of those are 3-year commitments of funding from the partners?
All 3-year.
They're all 3-year commitments. Okay, thanks, David. And then next, probably Peter, just concerning in the actual formalized business plan and application that comes through the development fund under business development, organizational mentorship, and sustainability for Harvest Algoma. And I want to thank you for taking my call last week and recommending and adding my edits. So under governance and board development, the Harvest acquisition and organization will fall under the governance of the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center Board of Directors. An advisory committee will be struck by December 31st, 2023, and they will assist in guiding and assessing the Harvest business model moving forward. And then if you go further into, because I want to get into the long-term strategies. So if you go under medium term, develop long-term strategies for harvest resilience. It also speaks to the advisory committee. We will create an advisory committee of community partners, so service agencies and funding partners. And thank you for being here tonight. I have to shout out to my neighbors, Soya. For some people that don't realize, approximately 200 to 250 individuals every Saturday go to Soya for a hot lunch. And we're seeing more and more students, young folks, and seniors. So food insecurity is really alive. And it's really shocking when you see the student population there. So I just wanted to have my moment and put that out. So we will create an advisory committee of community partners, service agencies, and funding partners. And I think that funding partner piece is really key because funders want to know what's happening, guiding, suggesting, to provide guidance, planning, and recommendations. This committee will provide reports to the SMIC Board of Directors to help alignment and decision-making. An annual audit and report will be prepared to understand the financial operations and need of Harvest Algoma as a separate program under SMIC. So currently, the way all of this is rolling out, Harvest will still continue to be a project of, not its own entity. So this is why we're seeing this advisory committee form, because it's a new thing. You can't just suddenly say, we're going to do this until we know what we know. Would that be correct, Peter?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions, and I fully support the 3-year $60,000. And I'm really impressed that we've had so many community organizations come forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Bezuel and Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few comments. there are two quotes that really stood out to me across these presentations. One is something I believe in wholeheartedly. Food brings people together. And it's so lovely to see the amount of folks in the gallery here to support a place that has been such a community asset. I want to give a little shout out to Soya. Just I recognize how difficult it can be to have a volunteer group and to see repeatedly at almost every single event the number of purple shirts that I see. It's a testament to your organization and a testament to Connie's leadership. So thank you so much for that. The second thing is someone just said hunger is the root of everyone's problems. This is a community issue, and the impact of losing harvest would be absolutely devastating. So I am very happy to support this, but I also just wanted to send out a thank you to our mayor for his really diligent work in trying to put this together, and also to the CAO of the DSAB, Mike Nadeau. I don't think the community often recognizes when these things come together, how they come together. And these two gentlemen have really put a lot of work into ensuring that we keep this asset. The one final thing, I'm thrilled to see such a seasoned community supporter sort of at the head of this in Chef Jane McGoldrick. She has given back time and time again to this community. And I feel very confident having her sitting so closely at the helm of Harvest. So I'm happy to support, and I hope that we see this through to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As well, I don't have any questions, just a couple of short comments. Some folks from the United Way, I was there in 2017 when everyone started talking about this. I was actually the chair of the United Way campaign back then when everyone started talking about this. And, food insecurity was one of those buzzwords that just came out and nobody really understood what it meant. And then all of a sudden, almost overnight, our city really understood the impact of food insecurity. And, as city councilors, we all have this great ability to fight for the people in our ward, fight for the people that we represent. But rarely do we have the opportunity to make a decision that has such an impact on the entire community as a whole to really affect change and really help individuals across the entire community. And tonight we have one of those rare opportunities, and I'm really happy that we're here to be a part of it, and I'm happy to support it. And I just want to echo one thing that Councillor Caputo mentioned. Sometimes these things come together and they seem like magic to those who were sitting in the gallery. And I saw tears of joy being shed tonight when the generous folks from Algoma stood up and made their announcement. And I think sometimes we think those things happen by some magic force that comes and pushes them through. And it's not that. It's the work of folks like Mike Nadeau over at Social Services and like Mr. Mayor and the other folks who sit on different boards in our community. I want all of the folks in our community to know this is not a topic that has not been discussed regularly. It's been discussed at every meeting, at every table, at every group and board across the community. You have a lot of really strong people in this community pulling together to make sure that these things happen. And I think tonight is one of the nights where we can actually show that our community leaders shine bright and really represent all of the individuals of our community equally and powerfully. So I want to thank everyone who was involved in getting these great things to happen. And I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Spina. Any other councillors with questions or comments? So seeing none, I've got a couple of comments just before we get to the motion, but we've expressed our gratitude to a great community partner. I forget, and I was glad I was reminded tonight that Algoma Steel is a founding member United Way here locally, and their commitment to the United Way and programs that the United Way has developed, like Harvest Algoma, is a continuing commitment that they've had over generations of steel workers and of company success. So thank you again for that to the Algoma representatives who are here. One thing I do want to give some recognition to is that the media coverage of this has been extremely helpful in rallying the community support to the cause of harvest. I don't think that there was it was widely understood when all this discussion began, the extent of the services that Harvest provides and the reliance of collaborative community organizations on Harvest's food that they distribute. So that has gotten out loudly and clearly, and that has frankly led to the outreach of many community partners and agencies that has resulted in this these figures that we have before us today on what we expect to be the successful outcome of Harvest's continuation in our community. So the other piece of that puzzle is the community organizations that benefit from Harvest's food, like Soya, who are here today in full force, and like the organizations that are distributed food from Harvest Algoma, have all stepped up to the plate. And if they are able to give, even in some cases, it's only $5,000 a year for 3 years. I mean, that is a huge aspect of some of these organizations' budgets, and they have stepped up and are committing their capital to their funds to Harvest's continued success. And so Councillor Spina said that it's not too often we get to touch on something that has such a vast impact across our community, but this is one of those times. We're often handcuffed in helping with social problems because they're under the auspices of the Ministry of Health, or they're under the auspices of the Ministry of Child and Youth Services, or outside of the municipal control. But in this case, we have the ability to directly help our community, and that's what we're being asked to do. And it would be an enormous loss if we had this service and lost it. And so for us to commit to its ongoing viability, to stabilize it over the next 3 years and see it develop into a self-sustaining or a sustainable model that is not necessarily reliant on municipal dollars in the go forward, it makes absolute sense to do so, and I support it wholeheartedly. And so I thank the Innovation Center and the DSAB and the Social Equity Roundtable and United Way, obviously, for getting us to this point where we have this asset, and provided certain things come together still between now and the next month or so, we will continue to have this asset in our community. This goes a long way to getting us there, but there is additional work to be done with partner agencies in our city. And those partner agencies will continue to hear from me, from the CEO of the DSAB, and from other organizations in town until we have those commitments nailed down and the success of Harvest stabilized for the next, for the interim period. So with that, there's been a number of iterations such, in 1 sec, Councillor Duffer, I'll go to you. There have been a number of iterations of the resolution that have gone out from Friday to today. And so we've got the newest version of it that's going probably on eScribe at this point. But before we get there, Councillor Duffer, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say my motion on eScribe is not showing one that I support. I'm listed as the seconder, so I was just wondering if we could go through the motion before we vote on it.
I can speak.
If
to
you
it.
can, yeah, Madam Clerk.
Yes, a friendly amendment was received that appears on the addendum. And there's been a friendly amendment proposed to this motion, which would remove the last line that states, in the event that a positive results are not realized, council reserves the right not to extend another $60,000. So if council is, and our original friendly amender is okay with that, we can read that motion.
So can you read the one? Yeah. Can you read the revised one that was sent to you a short while ago?
So the revised is resolved that the report of the Director of Economic Development dated September 18th, 2023 concerning Community Development Fund request Harvest Algoma Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center acquisition be received, and that funding for the acquisition be provided from the Community Development Fund Economic Development Stream in the amount of $180,000 to be paid out over a 3-year period in payments of $60,000 per year. Further, that Harvest Algoma and the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center present an annual report card to council showing the progress and financial results of the new food redistribution entity and the progress it is making to stabilize the organization over the period of the 3-year commitment.
You are the courtesies mover or seconder on that. I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me, but are you agreeable to that language?
I was just going to suggest that we put the Harvest Algoma Community Advisory Group as the reporting body and SMIC to do it jointly. That way the advisory group has that other task back to council on results as part of their oversight.
So in addition to Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center, it'll say Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center and the Harvest Algoma Advisory Committee.
Or just replace Harvest Algoma with Harvest Algoma Advisory Committee.
Councilor Gardy, you're the courtesy mover on that motion. Are you agreeable to the new language? Okay, so can we upload that to eScribe?
I've saved the new language and opened it for voting.
Okay, the new language popped up on mine, council, so you should have it on yours as well. Do a hand vote as well. All in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Just take a moment for the gallery to clear up a bit. Okay. So that.
Yes, that'll bring us to consent. And I have items 7.9, 7.12, 7.14, and 7.15 accepted from consent.
Okay. Council, questions on any items on consent other than those ones? Councilor Zagordo.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Shell on 7.2, the credit rating.
Yes.
I know we received a credit rating of AA+, compliments to you, Ms. Shell, and your team and your department. But can you briefly explain the scale for the credit rating and where AA+ is in comparison in the scale?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Zagorda. So our credit rating agency is Standard & Poor's, or S&P as it's called. There's also Moody's and Fitch who also do credit ratings, and they all have different scales. So I did provide council comparison of all the different ratings so that they can understand it. But our rating as a AA+ stable is a very high grade rating. It's one of the highest that you can achieve. So we do have to take some credit there. It also reflects stable, which means they don't anticipate a change in the next 2 years.
Oh, that's great news. Also in the report included a caution, which was, quote, a lowering of the rating in the next 2 years if larger than expected capital spending requirements cause budgetary results to deteriorate. Is this a general caution, or is the report seeing something we should be concerned with?
Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Zagorda, it is something that I highlighted in the report because we have never had this caution before. It also is consistent with my 2023 report to council at the budget, where I cautioned the amount of debt that we are taking on. We're still well within our guidelines, but we do need to be aware of the amount of debt that we're going to be taking on over the next few years. So you will see an update with the 2024 budget, the capital budget and forecast as to the projects that we're recommending that the departments have put forth as capital projects that they would like to see done. And you'll see the estimated funding, including long-term debt for your analysis. As well, we'll update all of the metrics so that you know exactly where we are.
Well, that's great news. So once again, compliments to you and your staff, and wonderful news. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Kinnick on 7.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mrs. Schnell. Also, I would just want to follow up with the caution that you highlighted in your report. So currently, we are sitting at our debt at what number?
Our current level of debt is basically just what we've incurred on the twin pad. Everything else has been paid off. We do have some internal debt. I don't have the up-to-date number on that, but the twin pad debt is $14.5 million. So our debt currently is extremely low. It's the forecast as we go forward and some of the significant capital investment that needs to be made that is causing the caution.
So, and the caution, because we did get kind of a forecast of the budgets going forward, I believe, at last budget. And by 2025, we expect to be somewhere around, I think it was 80 to 100 million in the capital projects.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, you are correct. That forecast will be redone based on new estimates that the departments will provide. I anticipate that that may go up with some of the inflationary pressures that we're seeing on some of our capital projects as well. We also will be looking at that time at possible deferral, postponement, alternatives, obviously to present to council at that time.
Okay. And in the case that we do take on, say, 100 million over the next couple of years of debt, if our credit rating is affected, what would happen to us as a city? What like disadvantages would we see current versus what we have now as an advantage?
From our credit rating agency, S&P, they have indicated that there could be downward pressure on the credit rating if we exceed those 30% of operating revenues.
And because we are AA+ standing, which is the second highest off the chart, are we seeing any benefits from having this credit rating at such a high level for our city?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. A credit rating, it's typically obtained in order for the municipality to obtain more competitive rates, but I can't really quantify that at this time. I can say that we're getting extremely good rates through Infrastructure Ontario, who we use for the twin pad debt. The credit rating is required if we issue debentures, which we don't at this point. And it's also opinion about credit risk. So it does kind of give us a report card on how the city is doing. It's part of providing transparent information and insight to the city's stakeholders as well, including our granting agencies and taxpayers.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Schnell.
You're welcome.
And I'd just like to extend congratulations to your staff because that is a really high credit rating and we've been able to maintain it once again.
Thank you.
Anyone else on 7.2? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, to Ms. Shelley Shell. Did you say that in the last 5 years, we have not ever gone below the AA?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, we have been at a AA level since 2015. And the city, since I've been tracking it, I have information from 2010. We've always been either increasing or at a stable level. So again, the caution is put forward because there is a pressure that it may bring our rating down.
Right. I just felt it's important for reviewers to know that last 5 years we have been continue to be solid and financially responsible. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Anyone else on 7.2? Councillor Zagordo, any other items on consent? Anyone else with items on consent? Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to quickly touch on the social equity transit pass. It seemed as though there's a lot of confusion in the community surrounding this. And I wanted to thank staff for their good work on bringing a portion, at least, of what we are missing from the provincial funding and through the DSAB back to these folks who need, to get on this bus, perhaps more than the average folks. And I just wanted to clarify that. Actually, Brent, can you clarify how the pass was working prior to this, like when the DSAB was funding it?
You, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, under the current model, which expires this December, the funding would come directly from Social Services Ontario Works to the city, and then anyone that qualified to receive social assistance would receive a bus pass. They qualify them, and then they would issue the passes. Under the new model with a social equity pass, they'd still be doing the qualifying to see who's eligible. In addition, Ontario disability clients would also be eligible, and then we'd be able to offer them at a 50% discount in alignment with a lot of the municipalities we researched in that same path.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all my questions.
Anyone else on 7.5? Councillor Caputo, any other items on consent?
No.
Anyone else with items on consent? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Item 7.14, the film policy.
I believe it's been pulled, so we'll
Okay, just one.
get to that. Yeah. Any other items on consent?
No.
No. Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour resolve that all the items listed under date September 18th, 2023, agenda item 7, consent agenda, save and accept agenda items 7.9, 7.12, 7.14, and 7.15 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carries. Brings us to Madam Clerk.
We already dealt with 7.9, so we'll go to 7.12. And this has been pulled due to a conflict. Yeah. I believe Councillor. Yeah. So I'll just point out there was an addendum on this item that clarified some wording in the original report, and we have revised motion under 7.12.1.
Are there any councillors with questions on 7.12 or 7.12.1? See none.
I'll read the motion and open for voting. I have a motion. Sorry, one moment. I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour resolve that the report of the Director of Economic Development and the Assistant City Solicitor Senior Litigation Counsel dated September 18th, 2023 concerning Yates Avenue PUC Transmission LP be received, and that the city-owned property described as being part of Section 34 Cora, Part PIN 31609-0043, specifically the 13.15 acre parcel marked on Schedule A to this report, be declared surplus to the city's needs and the disposition of the said property in accordance with the city's policy for the disposition of land to PUC Transmission LP for the amount of $1,052,000 be approved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
7.14, the City of Sault Ste. Marie Film Policy. There is no vote on this item as there are 4 bylaws associated with it. If needed, I can pull the associated bylaws.
Okay, let's have a discussion on it and see where we end up there. So, Councillor Kinnick, you asked, I believe, to pull this from consent, so we can start with you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my major concern with this is in what was prepared in our agenda here. Just the first line. Over the past decade, Sault Ste. Marie has defined itself as a go-to location for film, television, digital production in Northern Ontario. And I'm just worried that this is going to create more red tape. And we are going to see a decrease from, what was it, the 28 productions we had here over the last couple of years. Going forward, my main concern is the insurance. So I think I can direct that to Deputy CEO there.
Yeah, we've also got Mr. Rogers here to answer questions on his report. So ask the question, we'll get it to the right person.
Okay, so my concern with the $5 million insurance liability is if we pass this law and something happens, we are putting the city at fault now by making the Schedule A or by amending the bylaw. If something goes above 5 million, will the city be at fault?
Perhaps our Assistant City Solicitor can provide more insight into that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Keenock. The current film guidelines basically formalize the process that the film department has had in place for a number of years. The insurance requirements are something also that has been in place, and it's consistent with other communities and what they've asked. Given the fact that film will be doing various actions on city property, including perhaps sometimes driving speeds, et cetera. The $5 million policy has been recommended by our insurer, has been acceptable to media and film production companies to date. It has not, and is also consistent with what we've seen other communities have.
Okay, Mr. Rogers, yeah.
To add to that, when production, the insurance with $5 million, myself and the risk manager work with the production to figure out what exact shooting is going to entail and what sort of risk is associated with that. Allowance to enable productions with smaller budgets and smaller footprints to still work.
So if with the smaller productions, this will not affect them. If they need less than 5 million worth of insurance, they're allowed to get it? Or is this a minimum that every production must now be insured for 5 million?
Mayor, to you, Council, the smaller productions will still be able to go ahead with a smaller insurance. It just needs to be checked out by the city manager to ensure that it's going to work.
Okay. Thank you. And just another question. So is this going to affect like photographers, videographers for like weddings, like at Bellevue Park, for example? Would they now have to be required to have insurance to go to do wedding photographs or wedding videos in our city, in public spaces?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Council, all those types of groups are not required to provide insurance. The policy is designed for like large budget film, TV productions. The types of filmmaking, videography, photography that you're mentioning, those are by nature like fairly guerrilla filmmaking. It's usually like a 1 or 2 person crew. It'd be almost impossible for the city to track that, and I think it would cause more problems than it's worth.
Okay. Thank you. And I just had some other questions about, specifically, it was about the parking passes. So what would entail a production needing a parking pass? Like they cannot use city parking lots, or they can't use private parking lots, or what would be the reason for having them to have parking passes or permits?
Through you, Councillor, the nature of a production, production unit could be quite large. We've had some shows in town this year where the production unit, just the vehicles carrying equipment, they're going to have 4 or 5 cube vans. So helping out the production with the space that they need to film, say downtown, helps them the work that they need to do, and then the crew themselves are working, or they're using municipal lots or paid parking.
Okay, so even if they're using, like, we have free parking on the street from, what is it, the end of October to beginning of April. So they would still need to have a parking permit, even if they were abiding by the law, parking outside at that time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you councillor, at that point, it would just be a road occupancies. They'd be filing through the municipal consent form, or previously they would be filing through the municipal consent form. If the bylaw amendments happen and the film guidelines go ahead today, then that could be taken care of through the film permit process, which would now cover a lot of the things covered by the municipal consent form, such as road occupancy, closures.
Okay, thank you. And my last question would be about the canvassing of neighborhoods. Is this something that was recommended to us, or are other municipalities doing this where for every production they must canvass the neighborhoods to see if the residents don't have a problem with them doing their production on their street?
You, Mr. Mayor, you, councillor. Canvassing is standard in every municipality across Northern Ontario and the GTA. Canvassing during like the daytime hours is still a standard procedure. It lets the neighborhood know what's happening, keeps the production accountable to the neighborhood. In the film guidelines, there is a section under noise where it's mentioned that permission is required from the neighborhood. That's explicitly in the case of filming between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. because it could be considered disruptive. In the guidelines, it mentions that not every person in the neighborhood may not agree with filming happening per se. It's majority rules. If a majority of the neighborhood's residents, businesses are okay with filming happening, in the case of exemption to film overnight, then a permit could be approved. But in terms of daytime filming, canvassing is merely letting the neighborhood know what is going to be happening.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that it only takes a majority to for it to go forward. Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Thanks,
that's all my
Councillor
questions for this topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kinnick. You probably couldn't see it from the screen, but there are also folks from the film industry here in the gallery, and they were nodding when they were talking about the need to canvass in other neighborhood, other communities in Ontario as well. So it seems to be a standard practice. Mr. Rogers, is it correct to say that the policy is an effort to actually reduce the requirement to come to council for some of these exemptions, like noise bylaw, like street closures, like parking passes? Otherwise, these things would have to line up with our council timetable and be on our council agenda for approval if we did not otherwise delegate it.
That is correct. The goal of the guidelines is to make it so that the film industry doesn't need to go to council as much. For example, noise bylaw exemptions, which came through, I believe, 2 council meetings ago, that production had to file for noise bylaw exemptions almost 2 months in advance of when they wanted to film, which considering the nature of a film schedule, there's so many things that can happen due to weather, cast getting sick, location availability. It's really not feasible in a lot of ways and very disruptive to the work that needs to get done. By instituting the film policy allowances that are being asked to actually make it much easier for productions to film in Sault Ste. Marie. At this council meeting, there's bylaw amendments being requested for 2 bylaws, noise road cuts, which are the major bylaws which have been requested for a solution, for lack of a better term. By making this change, it'll alleviate the 2 biggest problematic bylaws for film productions. There are plans going forward to find bylaw exemptions, workarounds in a similar way to other bylaws that might affect filmmaking. But at this time, these are the major 2 that have very much affected filmmaking at Sault Ste. Marie.
You've got more work cut out for you. Any other councillors with questions on this report? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Through Mayor, great policy, and I see the benefits. I just want to ask the question. I'm under the impression that this policy, a draft, was shared to producers or to others in the film industry just to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Was it vetted with others?
The guidelines have been over the past year and a half provided to 10 productions that have filmed in Sault Ste. Marie. They've been provided to 3 upcoming productions for Sault Ste. Marie. That's the producers and the locations manager. They've all had a chance to look at it. The feedback that comes back is that they need bylaw exemptions. They need a way around that. They've also been provided to a number of producers just in direct outreach to try and attract productions to Sault Ste.
Okay, great. Thank you. I hope in the future we have a report on how many productions we have coming. And thank you for all your work on this, and also to Travis Anderson.
Any other councilors questions on this? Okay, seeing none, there's no vote on that. So that's a bylaw. Those are multiple bylaws, actually. So we can deal, Councillor Kinnick, if you do want to pull those in the consent bylaw, we could deal with that then, but otherwise we could just vote on them as part of the consent bylaws when we get there.
That will bring us to item 7.15, Queen Street Improvements, Phase 1 Engineering. That's also a bylaw, so if it needs to be pulled, I can pull it under the bylaws.
Okay. Councillor Kinnick, this was your request to pull from consent, so I'll go back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to once again echo what I've been saying about this project from the beginning. This Queen Street Improvement Project is a swing and a miss. I don't know why we are rushing into another project for downtown that will be over budget and not address any of the current issues. The proposal before us is from the direction of council from over 8 years ago. And there has been 2 elections since then. And from that council that gave direction, only 2 out of 11 sitting here today are with us. The opinions and the needs of the city have changed drastically since the direction was given. I do agree we need investment in our downtown, but what is proposed is like starting the build from the 2nd floor, completely ignoring all the structural support that the building stands on. This proposal should not be the project, it should be our starting point. It has been 15 years since the last major investment has been made on Queen Street. We are a newly elected council. We all ran on our ideas, which Suites agreed with. That's why we're sitting here today. None of our ideas are in this proposal because we have had no input into this project. Fellow councillors, we represent the people and the people can reject a recommendation. I ask you once again, can you live with this project for the next 50 years? We have a chance to make a real impactful difference in our community by voting no and going back to the drawing board with this project. And that's everything I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Gardy.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm glad we're proceeding with the project. If members of this council want to point out deficiencies that they see in things, I'm going to point out deficiencies as I see them. And as I see it, the plan proposed by Councillor Kinnick would have cost millions and millions of dollars more than the one before us. Democracy works by people voting in councils and those councils making decisions. And the good work of the councils before us are what we like add to and help to improve our city. So it's easy to say that, I wasn't around when this came up. It's easy to say that we should go back to the drawing board, but dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of hours have been put into this plan. Mayor Shoemaker came up with a proposal which was a compromise to get us to a consensus, to which a large part he did, and it was approved. There is absolutely no need to take a step back. I'm sure this is going to move forward, but I'd really prefer, I don't speak for council, I would really prefer that we quit talking about things and just proceed forward. We went through this a couple of times on a couple of evenings, and as far as I am concerned, this plan has been approved, and I'm hopeful that we're gonna just keep trucking. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Councillor Bezuwelen.
Thank you. Just one comment, Mr. Mayor, and I certainly echo my colleague, Councillor Gardy, and I just want to report back from the Accessibility Committee. And the Accessibility Committee, which is members of the general public, myself as council representative, as well as my colleague, Councillor Hollingsworth, and the entirety of the Accessibility Committee is very happy and looking forward to the improvements because their struggles continue and they are very strong advocates. And we've been working hard toward this. And it's not just to make Queen Street look pretty, it's to make it accessible and to be up to code. So I thank staff for this moving forward quickly. And I just want to say on behalf of the Accessibility Committee, because they're not here, they wholeheartedly support this plan. And I'm honored to be with them now over 5 years and look forward to a few more. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vezoel and Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to echo what both the councillors ahead of me said, but there's a piece in what Councillor Kinnick said that I want to address. He said that we're building something from the second floor and not addressing structural issues, which is actually completely untrue. I think the whole reason why we approved this the way that it stands is to address the structural issues, you know, to fix that lighting, to fix those sidewalks, to make things more accessible. We are doing things from the ground up. And as a new councillor, I think it's important. Something that I've really picked up on is we can agree on things and we can disagree on things. Once something is decided by council, I think it's really important that we rally behind it as a council and as a city and move forward. And so that is something that I'm really looking forward to doing on this project. However, I can best support the best outcome for this, I will. But going backwards on this, I simply cannot. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. I'd just add to that that while the downtown development plan likely was initiated 8 years ago, I trust that that's accurate, even though I haven't looked up the actual date of it recently. The plan that we settled on for Queen Street was approved 3 weeks ago. So we are not approving anything from 8 years ago. If council as a whole thought that the downtown redevelopment plan that is in existence and continues to be in existence needed a complete overhaul, it's got the authority to do that by telling staff to stop doing all downtown work by majority vote and redirecting them to work on what we see as our priority, our collective priority. However, the majority of us have determined that the plan that was approved at the last meeting is the plan that we found some consensus on. It's not perfect. It's a compromise, but it's what we've got. And this is to start engineering work on that. So nothing could be more rote in its direction than doing some engineering work on a municipal project. And I see it as an approval based on the direction council gave at the last meeting. So with that, I think we can, there's a bylaw on this one, right?
That's correct.
So can we pull that bylaw to vote on now?
That's 2023-160. I can pull that. And I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolve that bylaw 2023-160 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the engineering agreement between the city and AECOM for the design and contract administration for the Queen Street improvements between Bruce Street and East Street, which are planned for 2024, be passed in open council this 18th day of September 2023. And I'll open that for voting.
All in favor? Opposed? That carries. The one I can tell.
Close the vote. And that will bring us to item 9.1.
9.1 Graffiti Committee.
So I have a motion by councillors Bezawalan and Spina. Whereas in November of 2013, then councillors Myers and Butland presented a motion to create a committee addressing the incidents of nuisance tagging. And whereas this committee evolved into the Community Committee on Graffiti. And whereas multiple community organizations contributed, including Art Gallery of Algoma, Downtown Association, Arts Council of Sault Ste. Marie, Nordic Institute, Algoma University, Police Services, PUC, and others. And whereas the Graffiti Reframed project was led and created due to the outcomes of this committee, and whereas Nordic published the Graffiti Reframed research paper in 2015, and whereas the city and community partners have invested in multiple public art projects, and whereas nuisance tagging is on the rise, most notably defacing public art installations, and whereas further education, outreach, and advocacy needs to happen. Now therefore be it resolved that the Community Committee on Graffiti be revitalized and staff develop a terms of reference and committee structure.
Councillor Bezawalan.
Thank you so much, Mayor. This committee really did a lot of great work. I was really fortunate to be part of it 10 years ago as then executive director of the Arts Council and led into the Graffiti Reframed project, as well as a lot of activity at the Neighborhood Resource Center at the time, a lot of great youth movement, as well as a lot of great education. I remember one day we had a huge gathering here, and Madison was part of that committee as well, where we had ADSB and our graffiti artists, Sharon Hunter, Cameron Justcat, and Mr. Taddy, really do an education about the difference between nuisance tagging and graffiti. And, as a committee, we really came together. That's where the PUC RAPS came out of. There was a lot of public art projects that started. It just really started to get that understanding going. And Sharon and I still chat once in a while. She's still in the neighborhood about doing more projects. And I really have to put it out to Dr. Ortiz, now Dr. Meadis, and Dr. Broad for their work at Nordic. If any of you haven't read the project, it also connects the downtown dialogue and action. So if you go on the Nordic Institute website, there's a lot of really good research that's been done, even in terms of food security, that I invite all of you to kind of reacquaint yourself with. We have some world-class research being done here in community. And I think, like most things, we have a research paper, and then, whether it's figuratively or literally, it gets dusty on the shelf. So I think it's time to dust that off. The committee never struck a formal structure. So I think this is creates great opportunity, especially there's, institutional knowledge between myself as a community organizer and Madison as staff at that time. So look forward to getting more things happening. And the biggest concern is, and it's sort of an unwritten rule in the street art community, that when you see a mural, you don't touch it. It's unwritten. You can tag anywhere else, but you don't tag on public art. And we're seeing a rise in public art being tagged. And that's disconcerting. And I also think it's just time for us to re-educate ourselves, to re-educate our youth, to celebrate our street artists. And I'm excited, and thank you for the support. And I'll join the committee when it's allowed. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Sir Bezawalan. I'll give the option to Councillor Spina to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few short comments. I'm happy to support this motion. I'm happy that Councillor Bezawalan mentioned, some staff, and she was around back when this first started. And, and I was around back when this first started as well, aging myself a bit now in a very different capacity. So it's I'm happy to bring that lens back to this, a lens of community engagement and showing how, we can actually benefit the community by helping to educate people. And, it's not that, I guess it was long ago now that I was myself on top of a building with actually a fire chief with your wife on top of a building with her covering up some unwanted graffiti that was on a building downtown. And, quite frankly, if I have to grab a bucket of paint and cover it up again, I will. And I'll work as hard as I can with every member of this community to make sure that our downtown and the rest of our community looks as beautiful as people want it to. And I'm happy to continue to work with Councillor Bezo-Allen on this. And I'm very thankful to then Councillors Myers and Butland for having the ability to bring this forward and having the foresight to bring this forward and help our community get together. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Anyone else? Quick comments on this? Okay, seeing none. The vote is up. And we could have vote as well. All in favor? That carries unanimous.
That will bring us to item 9.2, accessible baseball fields in Sault Ste. Marie. I have a motion by Councillors Caputo and Spina. Whereas Sault Ste. Marie teams took 3 major provincial baseball titles on the weekend of September 1st through 3rd, including the 9U Black Sox, the 11U Black Sox, and the 13U Black Sox. And whereas Sault Ste. Marie played host to the 9U and 11U provincial championships and saw teams from across Ontario converge at Strathclair Yards for the tournament. And whereas on the heels of the tournament's success and the success of the Sault Ste. Marie teams, organizers believe the future of baseball is bright in Sault Ste. Marie. And whereas feedback from the tournament has been largely positive, with constructive feedback centered on the need for accessible fields, washrooms, parking spaces, and associated amenities on site. And whereas Challenger Baseball is a barrier-free form of baseball that has 33,000 participants and growing across Ontario. And whereas for the City of Sault Ste. Marie to host Challenger Baseball tournaments, or simply to enhance the experience of existing tournaments that are already being hosted in Sault Ste. Marie, more accessible amenities should be incorporated into Strathclair Yards. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Sault Ste. Marie, in partnership or coordination with Sault Minor Baseball Association and the Ontario Baseball Association, be directed to report back to the Council of the City of Sault Ste. Marie with potential accessibility improvements to the Strathclair Yards and funding options or grants available to make the necessary improvements.
First off, congratulations to the 3 Sault Ste. Marie teams who won provincial titles a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. That is a good omen for the future of baseball in our community. And great to see that this resolution came out of that, the feedback that we got from that event, hosting 2 of those tournaments here in town. I will, who's the mover and seconder here? We've got Councillor Caputo, mover, Councillor Spina, seconder, and I'll open the floor to anybody else who wishes to make comment on it. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward. I have had conversations with some folks within my ward about the lack of accessibility that was previously at Sinclair Yards. One thing that really stuck with me was I had a gentleman email telling me that he was able to park his vehicle. He is bound to a wheelchair, and by the time he came back, because the space was not accessible, there was a car right next to him and he would have to wait or ask someone coming from the field if they could get in the vehicle, move his vehicle forward enough for him to get inside of it. And quite frankly, that just kind of broke my heart. People with accessibility issues they have the right to be able to go and watch their grandkids play baseball, or maybe they are a kid playing baseball. They deserve that piece too. But in credit to the city, we brought that forward, and 8 spaces were put up as accessible spaces for this tournament. So kudos to staff for doing that. We would like to continue to build on that. And I was very happy to support this, and I hope hope to continue to see improvements at Strathclair on the fields and in the parking lots. Thank you so much.
Anyone else comments on this? Councillor Bezo-Allen?
Just one comment, and I spent a lot of time at those yards because my youngest played competitive baseball for a number of years, and our fields and our amenities are certainly sorely lacking because when you're in travel baseball, you go to a lot of different communities. But also, this is all about growing our community. And right now, Sioux College has a baseball program. They have their own baseball team. And I think that this just helps reinforce that we don't just need to be a hockey town. I think we can be a baseball town. And thanks so much for Councillors Caputo and Spina for bringing this forward, because definitely our facilities do need some improvements. And I just look at hopefully growing our opportunities for hosting more tournaments, especially at the college level. So thank you.
Absolutely. So with that, there's no additional comments. We could have a vote on the matter. All in favor? Motion carries. So before we get to consent bylaws, Councillor Kinnick, were you satisfied with the movie bylaws as they are proposed by staff?
Yes, they answered all my questions very well, and I have confidence going forward.
Good, thank you. So I think we just have to accept the conflict bylaws.
I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Bezo-Allen, resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda under date September 18th, 2023, save and accept bylaws 2023-149, 2023-159, and 2023-160 be approved.
All in favor? It's carried.
I'll move to bylaw 2023-149. This is zoning 207 Old Garden River Road, Daniel Fremlin Holdings, Inc.
Do any councillors have anything to add before we vote on this bylaw? Seeing none.
I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that bylaw 2023-149, being a bylaw to amend Sault Ste. Marie zoning bylaws 2005-150 and 2005-151 concerning lands located at 207 Old Garden River Road, Daniel Fremlin Holdings, Inc., be passed in open council this 18th day of September 2023. And I've opened the vote.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Closing the vote. And we're going to move to bylaw 2023-159.
Any councillors with comments or questions on this bylaw? No.
Okay. I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that bylaw 2023-159, being a bylaw to declare the city-owned property described as a portion of Yates Avenue, being part of section 34 Cora, being part PIN 31609-0043, specifically the 13.15 acre parcel, and more particularly described on Schedule A attached as surplus to the city's need, and authorize the disposition of the said property in accordance with the city's policy for the disposition of land to PUC Transmission LP by its general partner, PUC Transmission GP Inc., or as otherwise directed, be passed in open council this 18th day of September 2023. And I've opened the vote.
Okay, all in favor? It's unanimously.
That will move us to the closed motion. I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Vezo Allen, resolved that this council move into closed session to discuss one item concerning the security of property, two items concerning the disposition of land, one item concerning labor relations, and one item regarding solicitor-client privilege. Further, be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to continue to discuss the same matters without the need for further authorizing resolution. And I've opened that for voting.
All in favor? That carries.
And that'll bring us to motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Councillors Gardy and Dufour, resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? That carries.